Hi guys, my name is David Dismanat and I run MediaUnlocked.net, and today we're going to be showing you how I edit my astrophotography pictures. Now that's one of my most favorite things to do as a photographer. One of the things I spend a lot of time learning and mastering is taking pictures of the stars, but then editing them is almost just as important, if not more important, to make them pop and to make them really look pretty. Now the photo that we're going to be looking at today is a little underexposed, but it's fine. We're going to be able to bring the exposure back in and really clean it up and make this photo pop. We'll be using Adobe Lightroom, Photoshop, and then DxO's Nik collection, which was bought from Google a few years back, the third-party plugin. It used to be free, but they recently launched a new 2018 version where you got to pay $70 for it. Mainly what I think it does is nothing new in the software as much as it's just mainly it works better with Photoshop and Lightroom. Since we'll be doing all of our fine-tuning editing in Adobe Photoshop, we will be using the Nik collection, the DxO Nik collection in there. So let's get started. So here's the photo. As you can see, you see the stars, and it's fairly, I guess you could say it's underexposed, but that's going to happen with some of your astrophotography, and you're going to have to kind of bring that exposure back in and make those stars pop. So again, we're going to be using Lightroom for probably 80% of the editing, and then 20% or so with DxO, Nik collection, and Adobe Photoshop. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go into the lens correction spot. I want to hit the remove chromatic aberration. I just do this for every photo. And then I want to hit enable profile correction. So as you can see, nothing's happening here. So I need to go in and pick which lens I have. Sometimes this happens, and I have the 14mm 2.8 ED AS-IF UMC. I do not have this the Rokon SP 14mm. Mine is the 2.8 14mm. So I'm going to go on and click that. Now, if you notice, you get what's called a little bit of barrel distortion. It's not fisheye per se, but it's distortion of the barrel. And because it's a 14mm, that goes in and fixes that. So if you're using a wider angle lens, you may want to go in and make sure that you hit that enable profile correction. So that's going to fix the barrel distortion. Maybe you like the barrel distortion, maybe you don't. I personally am not a fan of it. So I go on and fix that. So now we'll close this and we're going to go up to basic. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit, and then we're going to play around with the color temperature. So we probably want to bring it up at like 110, not too high. So I probably will bring it to 110, and that looks pretty good. It's starting to show some of the colors. I can really still see the Milky Way. The stars look good. But if we brought it all the way up to, let's say, look at that. Now we've got all kinds of noise, and we've just completely blown it out. So Control Z will go back. I think it's Command Z on a Macintosh computer. And so now let's play a little bit with our color temperature. Now, for astrophotography pictures, you want to probably have your Kelvin or color temperature white balance between the probably 26 to 33, 35 range. You can go really, really blue if you want at 2000. That's way too blue. 26 is usually, you probably don't go below 26. And let's just, 26 is still a little blue for me. 31, and then we're getting up to 38. So probably 32 will look pretty good in my opinion. I like 32. Now I'm going to bring my magenta up a tad bit. I like to add a little magenta to the photo, but not too much. So probably a magenta of around 20. And so if anytime that we want to, we can just hit reset right down here. So we can kind of look at what it looked like before when we first started, and hit Control Z or Command Z, I believe, on a Mac. And we can go back to see where we're at with the photo. We're not going to mess with contrast right now. Again, if we bring a contrast in, you notice you're going to get a lot of this vignetting, which is going to get worse. And I do not want to do that. I like that you're going to have a little bit of vignetting on the corners with these wider angle lenses when you're shooting the stars. Highlight, we do want to bring our highlight down a little bit. That's going to darken up some of this, you know, anything that looks a little bit overexposed, but it will also, oops, I'm hitting clarity instead of highlight. We don't want to bring it too far down, even though the stars are really going to pop. It's going to make the photo too dark. So 24 is probably pretty good. We can bring our shadows up too much. Again, we bring the shadows up way too far, and we're going to have a lot of noise issues. Don't like that. So we'll probably bring our shadows to probably like a 40, just a little bit. Again, I'm going to black all this out even more. So I'm okay if I bring this stuff up a little too high because all this is getting blacked back out later on. But I do want to keep these trees pretty dark, so I'm not going to really work on the trees as much as we're going to work on in Photoshop how to black all this out, add more of a silhouette look to it. So again, probably 40 for me on this. We can bring our whites up just a tad bit, which is going to help make those stars pop. And then we could mess around with our blacks, but we are not going to mess around with the blacks right now. That's something we're going to do in Photoshop. We're going to leave clarity, dehaze, vibrance, and saturation. If you need a dehaze, depending on that, dehaze can look pretty cool. Actually, we can bring the dehaze up to probably around 20. That's probably going to make it pop a little bit nicer there. So especially depending on what time of the year you're shooting, dehazing may be something that you need. The colder time of the year, you're probably not going to dehaze as much as the warmer times of the year. When it's colder outside, it's clearer and you can actually see the stars better, but you're also freezing your butt off. So there is a takeaway, a give and take there. Again, we're leaving clarity alone, vibrance, saturation, we'll leave it alone. And that's about all we're going to do in the basic tab. Next, we're going to work on the tonal curve a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on this guy right here. And we can click different parts of the Milky Way here. And we can brighten or darken them up. So like right here, let's pick this spot right here. And we're just going to brighten that up. We're going to brighten this up just a tad bit. We don't want to over brighten though. And then we can darken all these darker spots around the Milky Way. We're just going to darken those up just a tad bit to make it pop just a tad bit. And you might see a little bit of difference. Again, we can always hit reset. This is what we started out with. This is where we're at now. So we're done with the tonal curve. We're not going to mess with anything until we get down to detail. Again, I don't personally like the sharpening in Lightroom. I'm going to show you a different technique for sharpening. So boom, we're going to pull that out. And we're going to close sharpening off. If you are using the Lightroom sharpening, you can use the masking tool here and hit Alt or Option for Mac. And you're going to see this. And as you bring the masking down, and we want to come to like, we're a little bit dark down below. We don't want to be too dark. And then this is going to help sharpen with the masking. And we can bring our sharpening up if we need to, or details up. And again, we hit this. And again, we don't want to bring it this far till it's like, that's just going to be way too much and look funny. So we probably want to come right when we're starting to get, the bottom area is really starting to get dark, right down here. And then we want to stop with the masking. But I'm not going to do sharpening here, so we're going to turn that off. Noise reduction, we can go ahead and do some noise reduction. Again, we're going to zoom in so you guys can kind of see this, hopefully. Oops, bring color back. We'll talk about that in a second. So the noise reduction, the nice thing is the more noise you take out of it, it's going to pull that noise out, which is really nice. But you're going to lose some of the sharpness, and we're going to bring that back in Photoshop. So it's okay. So I'm going to bring my noise up, I'm going to bring my detail up, and probably my contrast up. Actually, bring your contrast up. So if you bring your contrast up, it's going to start sharpening it back up a tad bit. So we don't want to bring the contrast up too high. And I might just go on and bring it all the way up. As you can notice, it got a lot softer, but we're going to bring that back out in Photoshop. So I'm okay that the shot is a tad bit softer. Again, with color, we're probably going to bring that up, and there's these little tiny colors from noise that you're going to get, and that's what that's going to go in and work on and smooth that out. So that you have a nice, smoother, less noisier shot. Again, it is going to smooth a lot of this shot out, but it's okay because I'm going to fix that again in Photoshop. So once I'm done with that, I've hit everything I want to. One more thing that you can play around with that may help out with the vignetting is under Effects, and then we have our different vignetting options right here. And you may or may not be able to use this to kind of pull some of your vignetting out, or if you want to pick a specific spot that you really want it to be focused, you can do that. But if you go too far one way or the other, you're going to get really white or really black. So you can play around with this, and this could assist in some of the vignetting. There's some other techniques out there, but this is just one that you can use in Lightroom. I don't usually use it. I understand there's going to be some vignetting on the edges, and I'm okay with that. It's not ruining my photo by any means. So the last thing we're going to do is some painting in Lightroom. Then we're going to move over to Photoshop. So make sure you've zeroed out everything here. And then this is the size of your brush, but you can use the wheel on your mouse if you're using a mouse to actually bring that larger and smaller. Feathering and flow, I keep my flow at around 50 and then my feathering at 100, and I can bring all that back down. Again, you also have a masking thing where you can select down here. So let's say I'm just going to work in this area, and it's going to show what I'm working on. And even though I don't have a zero, everything's zeroed out, it will work only in those areas where I masked and where I painted. And then if I bring this way up and turn the mask off, you'll be able to see, wow, and I can make it really dark, but we don't want any of that. So we're going to go back down to 0, hit mask, and we were going to delete this one, and we're going to start a new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the photo, and I'm going to pick out where the Milky Way is most prevalent to me, because that's what we want to work on, is the Milky Way. We want to make the Milky Way really pop. And this is where we can go in and color the Milky Way how we want. I try to keep it as most realistic as possible from what I can remember the way I saw it. So again, I'm just masking all this out so I can see exactly what part of the image I'm actually going to be working on when I work on the Milky Way. And so let's just, and again, you can make your brush smaller or larger as needed. And there's the Milky Way. And the Milky Way wasn't super prevalent that night, but it still looked really good. So this is roughly, and I would take more time into really putting this image together, but we're kind of running through it. So take your time and really look at the Milky Way and make sure that you're hitting all those points. There's no hurry, you know. This probably, if I was doing this for like the actual edited version that I have online right now of this very specific photo, which I think I took 4 or 5 years ago with my Canon 6D, I probably have just in this part right here, probably 20 or 30 minutes just really getting close. I zoom in and I get really close and I pick exactly which parts I want to edit. So we're going to want to probably bring the Milky Way up just a tad bit. I'm going to put 0.30. I'm also going to take the masking off now that I know what area I'm going to work in. So I can take the masking off, and as you can see, I'm just going to darken or brighten those areas, and I like 0.30. So that's where we're going to start off with. You can also work on your tint, magenta. I'm going to bring the magenta up probably to, let's say, a 25. Let's see how that looks. So again, it's only going to add magenta to the areas that are masked. Again, right here, if we hit the mask, we can kind of see what areas we're working in with the brush. We will probably pop the whites up a tad bit. This is where I'm actually going to use clarity. I didn't use any clarity at all because I wanted to use clarity for a very specific part of the image. Yeah, and so this is starting to look pretty good. We can mess with dehaze or saturation, noise, all this stuff right here. I don't need to do any of that because we kind of blanket. We did a blanket version of that throughout the whole image earlier. The only thing is that I might want to add a little more magenta here, so let's pop our magenta up to 60. That might be a little high. That is a little high, so let's go to a 40. And let's see how that looks. And yeah, I think 40 is good. So this is nice. This is popping, you know. Again, I'd put a lot more time into this. So now what we need to do to make it pop a little extra is we're going to hit the new tab, and we're going to start another one of these little pieces right here. And we're going to hit mask, and we're going to go in and draw in all the dark areas around the Milky Way. So again, we just want to draw this in. Again, I would probably put a little more time into this if I wasn't trying to kind of rush through it and show you guys. So, because what we want to do now is we want to really make that Milky Way pop. But that last one I'm a little too far, so Control Z or Command Z, and we'll just kind of work around it here. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, that's probably going to work. So we're going to turn the mask off. And what we want to do is I want to darken everything around this. And that's what I masked around. So that what we're going to do is we're going to bring our blacks down. And now we're starting to get some pop. Again, I'd go in and really work on these edges a lot better. If we overdid it, which is way too dark, again, we probably just want to go 35 or 40. And then we've got some nice pop so that the Milky Way really starts to come out of the image. You know, we've brightened and colored in this part of the Milky Way, and we've darkened this part of the Milky Way so that there's some separation in your Milky Way and your image, which is very important. So I'm very happy with what we got going on here. And I think we're good here in Lightroom. So what we can do now is we can right click on the image and we can click Edit In, and it's going to pop it up in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so once we're in here, what I'm going to go is go straight into the DxO Nik collection, and we want to work in the Color Effects Pro 4. Now you can skip this step if you need to. You don't have to do this step. I just have the option of this step, and I want to add a little bit more detail to make the image pop a little bit more. And I have a bunch of favorites saved on my desktop, but we're doing all this on my laptop. So under my favorites, and what we'll do is we'll zero out everything here just so we can see what it looked like before and after. So we'll just zero all that out. Those are the settings I used, I believe, last time. And what we want to do is we want to add in a little detail. Not too much. If we go way too far on the detail spectrum, you're going to, whoa, what's going on here, dude? And let's bring it back. And that's probably a little too much still. And we probably around 10% would be my guess. So 10%'s nice. And we want to bring the contrast up a tad bit. Let's bring the contrast up to 8%. Darken it up and make this really pop. Now you've got a nice image that's really starting to come together and pop. So I'm going to go on and click OK. There are some other really nice ones. You can hit Add Filter, and we can do like a Pro Contrast, which can be a lot of fun to work with, which you will use with other images. Let's see here, Pro Contrast. So we could open up Pro Contrast. And we can mess around with it, but I don't think we really need to. I think the image looks fine as is, and you can kind of go in and mess around with the Pro Contrast. But I have used Pro Contrast for some of my images in the past, for some of my astrophotography images, but I really think that detail extractor is really all we need here today for this image. All right. Now that we've got this, and we're going to let this open up. It's going to take a second. And it's going to take a little bit longer. Sorry, I'm running like quite a few pieces of software on my laptop, so it is a little sluggish. Once we've gotten to this point, what we want to do is do some editing down here. And so what I want to do is I want to click here, and I want to click Curves. And what we're going to do is we're going to darken up. So we're going to scroll down here so you can kind of see. We're going to darken this up a little bit more so it has a nice little silhouette. We'll probably leave some of these mountains in here popping. We don't want to really darken up these mountains as much. So what we'll do is we'll go back to here, and curves right here. And we're just going to darken this lower part. We're going to do a darken on the whole image, so you're going to be able to see. We'll scroll back out so you guys can see the image here. Sorry about that. And as you can see, the whole image itself is just way too dark here, right? So we'll go back here. And as you can see, we're really darkening the image. And I really just want to focus on darkening this lower part. So this looks good. I've darkened everything in here at the bottom of the image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert this white to a black. And then I'm going to draw in the part of the image that I really want to be dark. So I'm going to hit Control-I. I'm guessing it's Command-I on a Mac. And so now I want to hit B for brush. And what I'm going to do is, and if you notice, if this is white right here and this is black right here, if I go here and I start doing this is what I was just doing with those curves. And now it's going to pop up as a little dot here, right? So we want to hit Control-Z or Command-Z, go back. And we're going to zoom in and we're going to work on this image here, right? So, and as you can see, I'm just kind of darkening this up. And I want to keep some of these mountains in here. And I don't really want to darken. If I darken up here, that's going to look funny if you can see that. So really, I just want to darken this right here. Yeah, there we go. And we're just kind of darkening this up. And as you can see, it's showing what I'm darkening here, which is great, and so I can see what I'm missing. And, yep. Now, if for some reason I darken something that I didn't want to darken, like this, I can hit X, and you're going to notice this change here, and now it goes to black. So black and black, right? So they're both black, and then I'll hit B for brush, just to make sure I'm still on the brush, and it's just going to get rid of what I just did. And if you notice, it's gone. So again, watch this, and over here it goes away. So I'll hit X again, so we got white on black. So they're opposite colors, and again, it's just going to bring in that curves layer, only the part of the curve layer, and you can use this for all kinds of images. And now what we can do is we can come back out, and now we've really darkened the bottom part, and it looks really, really nice. If we turn this layer off, this is what it looked like before, this is what it looks like now, and there's still a little bit of that in here, isn't there? So let's just make sure we get it all out. And then X again, and again, you can kind of see, and there's a little bit of dark here, as you notice, if we turn it on and off, but again, this is a little bit pronounced. So if I wanted to go in and fix that, I could hit X again and just kind of make sure I get those edges, and it won't pop as much. And that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make another layer. I'm gonna do a few things with that. So we're gonna hit Control Shift Alt E, or you can just hit your layer button down here, and we're gonna make sure we put our spot healing brush, and we're gonna get rid of some stuff in this image that I don't like this guy right here. So we're just gonna go on and draw him out. And again, you guys probably can't tell a difference, but editing this image, you might be able to go in and zoom and really tell a difference, but just looking at it, no one's gonna be able to tell a difference. And then there was this little speck here I didn't like. You know, I'm guessing it's a star that kind of went through the trees, and I'm just gonna kind of nitpick some of those specks. So this is almost completely dark down here. Yeah, and that looks pretty good to me. All right, I'm happy with that. All right, so we're gonna zoom back out, and we're gonna make one more layer, Control Alt Shift, and now we're gonna talk about my sharpening technique. And I'm really gonna focus on just sharpening just my Milky Way. And we're gonna zoom out just a little bit more so we can really see the whole image here. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit Filter, we're gonna hit Other, and we're gonna hit High Pass Filter. And this is set to a 3 radius, so that is actually probably the radius I want. Just to show you, if we make, let's do a 700 radius, this is gonna look insane. So while it's doing that, it's gonna take a second, it's gonna way over sharpen this, and then what we're gonna hit is overlay, and wow, I mean, that really pops, but that's so sharp, it's way too much. So again, I'm gonna hit Control Z and go back out, and then Control Alt Z or Control Command Z, I believe, from Mac, and we're gonna put a filter back on, and we're gonna do a high pass filter, and we really wanna do right around 3. Okay, so again, it's black right here, so what you do are gray. So just hit normal, and then you want to do an overlay. You could, any of these overlays will work with it, but then different overlays are going to give you different, it's going to work differently, I guess. So I just like regular overlay. All right, so the whole image has been sharpened. I don't want the whole image to be sharp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this masking tool, and then I'm going to hit Control I, and again, it's going to invert it, so we have a black one here, and we're going to hit X again, so that, again, white, black. So if it's white on black, then what we're doing is we're drawing in the sharpness instead of taking it out. So what we do now is we're going to hit B for brush, and we'll probably just zoom in a tad bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in and just draw in where we want the sharpness. And I want the sharpness to be just the Milky Way, not any of the darker spots, just the Milky Way. So that's just what I'm working on, is just the Milky Way to sharpen it up. Just around the Milky Way, and that's what I'm sharpening up. There we go. So if you notice over here, again, that's what's being added as sharpness, and we can actually go in real close, and we can do, and you see, that's, and then afterwards, that's a sharpening it up, and then sharpening it up, which just makes it so much easier. And so now you could blanket and sharpen the whole image, or you could go in and you could just sharpen all the stars if you wanted to, but I really want my Milky Way to just pop. So I'm really just focusing on the sharpness of the Milky Way. The black really pops around the Milky Way, so I don't feel like it needs to be any sharper. Again, if you over sharpened, or not over sharpened, but oh yeah, if you over sharpen, you can go over here to opacity and bring that down too. So it will bring down 17% of the sharpness that you did. I want 100 because I like that. As well, if you want to take away some of it, again, you just hit X. Oops, don't want to do that in opacity. Let's put opacity back down to 100. And we just being in the image here, we can hit X and then flip this. And then we could hit brush and we could just start brushing away some of the sharpness if we wanted to. But we don't want to do that with the mask. So that is the image. It's really, really simple, really easy to do. There are some other techniques out there, but this is the technique I like the most. So feel free, one, to ask me any questions. If you have a technique that you'd like to show me that I might have missed that you think will help me, I'm always open to it. That's the objective of becoming better and better each and every day, is that I'm not afraid to learn from people, even people that I consider not as talented as me, because everyone probably knows something you don't, and you can learn from just about everybody, even if it's just a beginner photographer. As always, guys, the newest video will be right here. We'll put something over here diagonal in the link. If it's something you're interested in, go click on it because we do get a little commission. And of course, down below, hit that subscribe button. You know this tutorial is amazing. We have a lot more coming your way. We're doing these live videos. So why would you not want to subscribe and learn more from us here at Media Unlocked? As always, guys, I'll catch you next time. You guys have made it this far. If you want to check out our newest video, it will be right here. If you want to check out the product, it will be down here. If you do happen to click on it and purchase it, it does give us a little bit of commission, and that helps Media Unlocked keep making these videos. And of course, guys, right down below, go on and leave a comment, hit that subscribe button, follow along. We'll catch you next time.